The bitter legal dispute between these two actors has dragged on for more than a year. Now it's heading to trial next month without one of Blake Lively's central claims.
Come on. What are you doing?
Blake Lively just lost most of her case. Here's what's left: 10. Claims gone. Just like that. Blake Lively walked into this legal fight with 13 bullets, and a federal judge just pulled 10 of them right out of the chamber, including the one that started all of this. The sexual harassment claim, dead on arrival. And honestly, if you've been following this story since the beginning, this ruling is going to reframe everything you thought you knew about where this case was actually headed. Because here's what nobody's really talking about. What's left might actually be more dangerous for the other side than people think. 3 claims survived, and the May 18th trial date is still locked in. Welcome to the Marquee Report, where we break down Hollywood's biggest stories with the detail they actually deserve. Let's slow this down. Because there is a lot happening right now, and most coverage is skipping over the details that actually matter. If you're just joining this story, here's the quick version. It Ends With Us hit theaters in August 2024. It made $350 million on a $25 million budget. Blake Lively starred in it. Justin Baldoni directed it and produced it through his company, Wayfarer Studios. The film was distributed by Sony. By any financial measure, it was a massive success. Lively's highest grossing film and a landmark moment for author Colleen Hoover, whose books had never been adapted before. But behind the scenes, something had already fractured between Lively and Baldoni during production. At the red carpet premiere, the cast visibly froze Baldoni out. Nobody addressed it publicly. And during the press tour, Lively caught serious heat for the way she promoted the film, leaning into her hair care line and her alcohol brand, with critics saying she was undercutting the movie's message about domestic violence. Then, 4 months after the premiere, the New York Times dropped a piece claiming Lively had been sexually harassed on set, and that Baldoni had orchestrated a coordinated media campaign afterward to destroy her reputation. That article lit the match. By December 2024, both sides had filed lawsuits, and we've been watching this legal war play out ever since. Now we're in April 2026, and the case just hit a turning point that nobody saw coming at this scale. On April 2nd, just hours before a scheduled conference call between both legal teams, U.S. District Judge Louis Lyman issued a ruling that gutted the majority of Lively's complaint, and 10 of her 13 claims were dismissed. Gone. That includes her federal and state sexual harassment claims, defamation, and conspiracy. Here's the key legal reason the harassment claims were thrown out. Lively was classified as an independent contractor, not an employee. That distinction matters enormously under California law. Certain workplace harassment protections simply don't extend to independent contractors in the same way. The judge found that the harassment claims lacked the necessary legal nexus to California to survive, and without that foundation, those counts couldn't go forward. That's a significant blow. The harassment claim was the emotional and narrative center of her entire case. It's what the New York Times story was built around. It's what launched all of this. And this is where it gets interesting, 3 claims made it through. 1. Retaliation under California law directed at Wayfarer Studios and the production company behind the film. 2. Aiding and abetting retaliation targeting the PR firm involved, the agency group PR. 3. Breach of contract, specifically tied to something called the contract writer agreement with the film's LLC. These aren't consolation prizes. Retaliation claims, if proven, carry real legal weight. And the contract writer agreement breach is particularly notable because the circumstances around that agreement have been contested from the very beginning. To understand why this ruling feels like such a gut punch to Lively's side, you have to understand what the original case was designed to do. Lively didn't just want damages, and she wanted the story on record, officially legally in a courtroom. She wanted the alleged smear campaign acknowledged in a way that no amount of text messages or press coverage could achieve. The harassment claim was the spine of that argument. Now that spine is gone. And the context around the surviving claims has gotten messier over time, not cleaner. Earlier in this case, a series of text messages between Lively and various parties were officially unsealed, and they've been genuinely damaging to her public narrative. In those messages, Lively referred to Baldoni as a clown and her doofus director. There were exchanges that Baldoni's legal team argued showed her attempting to exert creative and commercial control over the film beyond what she was entitled to. There was a conversation with Sony CEO Tom Rothman that became particularly uncomfortable. In it, Rothman acknowledged that Lively didn't deserve the level of public backlash she received, but also said she brought it on herself by refusing to take advice and by using the promotional press tour to sell her own products. Sony president Sanford Panitch was even more direct, calling the decision to promote her hair care line during the press tour something he clearly couldn't believe had actually happened. Those messages put Sony, the distributor, in an awkward position. They'd been publicly hands-off. The unsealed documents showed they were privately frustrated. Meanwhile, Taylor Swift, Ryan Reynolds, and Matt Damon all got pulled into the story through various text exchanges. Swift's song My Tears Ricochet was featured in the trailer, and there were messages suggesting Lively may have leveraged that placement in ways that raised eyebrows. Baldoni's legal team has largely been playing defense and doing it quietly. Most of his own claims were dismissed last year under a California law that prevents defendants accused of sexual abuse or harassment from filing retaliatory defamation suits. His team chose not to refile, preserving their right to appeal after Lively's case concludes. That's a calculated move. It keeps Baldoni out of the immediate spotlight while the trial focuses on Lively's remaining claims. If she wins anything, he can challenge it on appeal. If she loses the rest, the story ends differently than it started. The movie itself has continued to build a legacy in the meantime. Colleen Hoover adaptations have kept coming. Regretting You in 2025, and Reminders of Him in 2026, and Verity reportedly set to release later this year. The It Ends With Us film remains profitable, culturally significant, and constantly referenced. That success doesn't fade just because the people who made it are in a legal war. So where does this actually leave us? Lively goes to trial on May 18th with 3 claims: retaliation, aiding and abetting retaliation, breach of contract. The sexual harassment narrative, the one that defined the public's understanding of this story, is no longer part of the official case. That doesn't mean what she described didn't happen. Courts dismiss claims for procedural and jurisdictional reasons all the time. But it does mean the trial is going to look very different from what most people were expecting when this started. And there's still a full trial to get through. And with everything that's already been exposed in this case, there is no version of this that ends quietly. May 18th, mark it. This has been the Marquee Report. If you want serious, detailed coverage of Hollywood's biggest legal and industry stories, no fluff, no gossip framing, subscribe and hit the bell. We cover what actually matters, the way it deserves to be covered. We'll see you on the next one.